Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. So, our guest today was on his LinkedIn profile and realized that it wasn't too long ago that he was a football coach and a social studies teacher. And then within a couple years of starting his business, I read another article on Forbes where he was highlighted as making over $1 million a year, which is interesting because he went from social studies and a football coach to making more money in a month than he was making all year back then. So, welcome to the show, Shane Sams.
Charles, man, it is good to be here with you, man. I've spent like the last 7 days speaking in airplanes and running around airports, and I was like, I've got a podcast this morning with Charles, baby. Let's go. I'm pumped up, dude, to be sitting in a chair and not on a moving sidewalk in San Diego's airport somewhere, man. So it's gonna be a good time, dude. Let's do it.
Awesome. You know, your email list is over 100,000 large. Is that right?
Yep, we have a pretty big audience, man. We've been building that thing for a long time, and we actually have multiple email lists because we were talking a little off air, and that's how I build my business. I do podcasting, the podcast grows an email list, we build a relationship with the email list, and bam, that's how we sell everything that we do, though. So yeah, building the email list is critical to what we do, man.
And it's the podcast that is the nucleus and
Sure.
the fuel
Yeah.
behind
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
of
That
those
started from
different
the
businesses, right?
that started from the very beginning of what we did. When I first started my online business, actually right before it, I was a school teacher in Southeast Kentucky. One day we actually found out my son was telling me that something was going on at one of his daycare. At his daycare center, there was a worker there that was actually mistreating him. So I tried to get the day off work to go investigate, but my boss actually told me no. She told me, if your son's not in immediate danger, you have a job to do, Mr. Sams. And I know your son needs you, but your job needs you too, and you're going to have to handle your personal problems after work. I can't go sit in your classroom. You're going to have to do that. And I decided that day I was going to become a business owner. I was going to go take control of my income, but I didn't know how I was going to do it. So that's what sent me down this rabbit hole where I discovered courses, where I discovered online business, where I discovered that you can make money, on the internet. And the way I found it was actually through a podcast. I was on my lawnmower one day trying to learn about business, and I found this podcast called the Smart Passive Income Podcast with Pat Flynn. Back then, I was just listening to this guy say, man, I make money on the internet. I sell these resources like PDFs, courses, things like that to these people who are taking an architecture exam, and they can pass the test if they download my stuff. And I was like, Lord have mercy, I can create stuff to download. So me and my wife actually started coming up with ideas. And our first idea that really worked was this idea called elementarylibrarian.com. And the way we built that business, I just kind of deconstructed what I saw Pat and all these other successful people do. And I was like in the bed at night. I was in my car, folding laundry, work. It was everywhere I went. I had podcasts in my ear. And I was like, man, I want to be in people's ear like that. This is incredible. And then we created basically what were courses, but it was lesson plans. So they would have downloadable resources they could use in their classroom, and they would have videos that they could show their class, just like you would a course or anything like that. Just content. You log in, you view it, and you use it. And, I only made $2,500 a month as a school teacher in Southeast Kentucky. That's like 100 people paying you $50 a month, right? We were like, wait, what if we could get 100 librarians to give us $50 a month? So we sent an email out to our list. There was like 250 people on the list. And we were like, if we put all these videos and resources into a place where you can log in and get it, will you give us $50? And in the very first month, we had like $2,500 in sales. And then it just went crazy, man. So it went from 2,500. We got more librarians through the podcast on the email list. And that's 5,000. We got more librarians on the podcast on the email list. Then it was 15,000. And then in August of 2013, it hit $36,000. That same month, we were like, I wonder if we could repeat this process. So I launched a podcast for football coaches. It's called the Coach XO Show. That's what it was called back in the day. And I was selling like playbooks and videos to install my defense that I ran at my high school, right? And that one, when we launched it, made $7,200. So all of a sudden, we're making more money in a month on our online business with just a couple podcasts, a couple email lists, and some resources that you can view. And yeah, man, in September of that year, we quit our jobs and we went full time, like online. And that's what we've been doing ever since, man. Just like crushing the podcast,
Brilliant.
the email, and the service game, baby.
That's brilliant. How has your marketing changed over the last decade? Is it
Mm,
still podcasting or what's
sure.
changed since then?
So there was an evolution, but one of our friends was like, "Do you think you could teach me how to do this?" So we showed her what we were doing, and she quit her job. And she went home and she homeschooled her kid. So we started a new company called Flipped Lifestyle, FLIPPED, where we actually teach people how to start, build, and grow online businesses just like we do. And as we were setting it up and we kind of deconstructed what we did to win, we were looking at it and we were kind of like, okay, well, we're going to have a podcast. We're going to grow an email list. We know we're going to have courses and course areas and memberships and all that good stuff. But this one was a little different because we didn't know exactly how to go get people to find this podcast. Like if it was a librarian's podcast, we understood SEO and search results, and people were going to be able to go in and like type in library lesson plans, or I have a history website, history lesson plans. I have a football website, football defense, right? But we didn't really get like how to get into this game because it was a little bit more. So we actually started doing another marketing strategy based on podcasting. It's some people call it the Dream 100. There was this guy named Chet Holmes who kind of developed it. So basically, I heard about this and I was like, you go on other people's platforms and they introduce you to their audience, you bring value, and then you figure out a way to honor and reward the person who did the introducing by, affiliate relationships, or you promote them to your list or whatever. You just help each other, baby, basically. So I just started figuring out like strategies to get relationships with these people. So we started going to live events and we would meet them. I started interviewing them on my show. That's a great way to get people to do that. I found a really good strategy that works almost every time that I do it. Buy their product and become their best testimonial. Like just go
Mhm.
do what they teach and make it happen. And we started building relationships. I've done hundreds of podcasts and all these other things that we go out in the world and do. We built an audience for Flip Lifestyle based around our authenticity, our personality. All y'all can hear me right now. I talk funny. We just went out into the market like who we were, and that's really changed a lot of stuff. That's where we were able to scale because we weren't just like field of dreams in it waiting for them to come to us. We were going to get it. Yeah, I'd say that's probably the biggest evolution in our marketing, but it's still get them to our podcasts, get them to our email list, serve them as best we can there, offer them cool things they can buy that solve problems in their life. If you do that, man, you're going to eventually make it.
Yeah, I got it. So, what have you
Mm.
found in all the years that you've been doing podcasts? What works and what doesn't work?
If you want to monetize your podcast, okay, the first thing I would tell you is stop listening to anybody that just tells you to go out and buy ads. Like, especially in the beginning when your audience is smaller, that what you can charge, the scraps from other people's table is not going to be enough, right, to
Mhm.
do what you need to do. You've got to figure out like what can your podcast lead to and create that. So we actually work backwards. Like, what's the product that we would sell on our podcast? Like, what am I going to advertise on my podcast? So with Flip Lifestyle, it was like, well, we know we're going to help people with their online business. So we want to make sure we have a course that is going to teach people how to do this. So that's what we're going to advertise on our podcast. Now, what's the best way to do that? What's the content we can wrap around our ads? We have 3 ads on every podcast. We have a beginning ad, a mid-roll ad, and an end ad. They all point to our email list. And then the email list will take people to the product. So we're always giving something away free on our podcast, but we know the destination. We know exactly what we're trying to do. So now our content is not random. Can I get somebody to talk to me? Can I do this? It's very specific on what we do. So what we do on our podcast for Flip Lifestyle is, well, the best thing we can do is show what our product does, not tell what our product does.
Mhm.
So I don't really do a lot of big time guests. About once a month, I'll bring somebody on the show who's kind of like a celebrity person, especially if I'm Dream 100ing and I'm trying to give
Mhm.
them some opportunity so I can get some opportunity. But usually what we do is we bring our students on and we help them live on air. And then at the end of it, we're like, hey, you know what you should do next? You should go watch module 3 in our course. Oh, that is what I should do next. I'm logging in today to go do that, Shane. All right, we'll see you next time, guys. And then we say, hey, do you want to go take that course? Let's go learn some more stuff about what we sell. So that's what I would tell everybody is figure out the problem you would love to solve for a very specific person in the marketplace and create that thing. And then your email list, its job is to send people to that thing somehow. And then your podcast job is to show the result of that thing in a very, very good way that gives people value, lets them learn it, and gets them to want that thing. So our flow works exactly like this. I have a podcast where I demonstrate excellence in our product, or I talk to an expert who's related to our product. And usually I record a video of them and put them in my product.
It's funny. The first course that I ever created, which we sold for many years at $10,000 a piece, that first course, I sold it before I even created my very first module.
Oh, you speaking my love language. Pre-sales is the key, man. My love language, everybody's like physical touch or acts of service. No, my love language is pre. Dude, that first thing we sent to elementary librarians was, "Hey, we're gonna make this if you buy it. If we made this, would you pay $50 for it?" Is basically what it said. And a lot of people wrote back and were like, I'll buy it, but only trust people that vote with their wallet." We sent them a PayPal button, was the first thing we ever sent out. And yeah, man, and they all bought it. And it's great because you can probably verify this. Like nothing will light a fire on you to get your course done
Yeah.
than people giving you money for it before it exists.
In my past that I was really, really excited about. And I'd turn around and I'd spend all this time and effort trying to build something out only to realize that just because I was excited about it didn't necessarily mean that my market was excited about it. So
Exactly,
I put
man.
all this time, effort, and energy into something and it never really panned out the way that I wanted. And so that's where we created with the first product was an MVP. Let's actually just sell it first. Let's create the
See
initial
if people
marketing
buy it.
efforts and see if people want it.
Yes. We have a saying in our business. You know how you get in a meeting or like you're a mastermind or with your team or something, and everyone's just throwing mud on the wall and everyone's hype and excited, and you've built like this 97 module, whatever it
Right.
is, the wiki, and like, they're like, let's do it, But when we start that process, like that's the first thing we do is we say, like, we're developing a new product. It's like, okay, what's the minimum viable thing we can do?
Yeah.
And here's how we figure that out. We figure out like, well, what's the customer's first question probably? Like, for example, usually people in starting an online business, I'm talking about beginner, not like six or
Yep.
seven figure
Sure.
entrepreneurs. So
Yeah.
we realized that. And like one of the first things we created for Flip Lifestyle was this idea training. And just so the very basic people could get that. Then instead of figuring out like us sitting down and going, we're so smart, let's figure out what's next. We're not smart. We don't know anything. We just know that someone has one problem. But if you can get that thing in their hand, here's what always happens. The percentage of people that consume the MVP will have questions on what's next. They will always have
Yes.
questions. And
Yes.
I learned this very early on. Everyone is one question away from giving you more money. That's how all business works. So instead of trying to answer all the questions and guess, just create an environment where people can ask you questions. So all the questions became the next videos. And then all the next questions became the next videos. And over the last like almost 10 years, it's grown into this amazing, evergreen, awesome thing. And nobody asks questions we haven't heard before. So I actually consider courses at first, it's not do it yourself. I actually call it, when we talk about it in our team, we call it do it alone because you're
Uh-huh.
really alone when you're
Yeah.
taking a course. So there's actually a second level that's extremely valuable. And this comes from building audiences. Like when we built audiences, we realized that people really liked the like-mindedness of this is my podcast, this is my expert, this is my thing. So instead of a do it together thing, what we have is do it in community level. So now what happens is, as an audience creator, you can give the gift of your audience to the course taker. So they're doing it with each other. So all you have to do is provide space for them to be together, like a forum, or some people do some Facebook groups, but I don't build anything on anyone's platform. I build my own. So like a forum or something like that, just give them a place to hang out with each other. You don't have to do anything. You just got to make sure nobody's trolling, and they never troll because they pay for it. So then what happens is that lets you have a look inside the kind of the ant farm, the ant city, the ant hill or whatever. Those ant farms, you can see them like on the window, and you can see what's happening. And that is where people will bubble into, oh, these 20% of people want to come over here to the true do it together. And you can put them in group coaching. You can put them in a facilitated area. You can charge them more here. And then those people, that's where they'll spill over because they're doing it together, but you actually can figure out who is stuck and take them over to where it's do it for you into your services, right? Like we have that flow. Like right now, it's like we have this blueprint. You can do it yourself. That's fine. If you want to do it yourself, go it alone. It's going to go slow. I have an analogy. I do rowboats. If you're just alone and you're not buying our course, you're drowning, right? And it's so easy to add a community to a podcast. Like you can sell a community by itself with no course because people just want to talk to each other because they listen to your show. So
Yeah.
yeah, man, that's where it all spills out from that relationship. That's where the real money can kind of start. And you can go 7 figures, 8 figures, and beyond.
I get a lot of questions nowadays about AI and the impact that AI is going to have among experts. And
What do you think? I'm interested in that. What do you think it's going to do to us all?
well, AI can't replace three things. It can't replace relationships, critical thinking, and creativity. When it comes to AI, you can either compete against AI, which quite frankly is a losing battle. You just can't compete against AI for that matter. It's an exponential learning tool, and the more and more people understand it, they realize that it is literally impossible. But if you look at it and say, I'm going to work with AI, now what you're doing is you're jumping in the rocket ship and you're working with it. And so it can't compete with relationships, which you and I have just talked about community. Human beings, one of our core drives and needs is a sense of community. That's why religion is so important and fraternity is so important and sports teams are so important. It's because people thrive on community. So community is an important part. And I think we're going to see more and more emphasis on organizations, especially top organizations, leaning in on community.
Right.
Critical thinking. Well, AI is great, but garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have the right inputs and the right programming into AI, you're still going to get garbage out. So it takes somebody to be able to help guide you in understanding how do you put the right prompts in, give it the right instructions. And where I see one of the biggest mistakes now, where people are putting in prompts into AI and they're receiving it as God's word. But the
Yes.
reality is, no, you missed one important component. That one word you just added gave you the wrong output. You have to change that word and watch the difference in the output that it produces. And that is the more accurate one. And all of a sudden it's like, boom. So garbage in, garbage out. And then the creativity component of it. Your competitive advantage when it comes to AI at the very base level is nothing. Right now, it's easy because you have the difference between those using it and those who aren't using it. And if you use it, you have a competitive advantage. But everybody who then uses it, and that will be happening, more likely, we're going to see a bulk of people using it by the end of the year. Right now, we're still in a very early adopter phase. But then everybody starts to use it, the competitive advantage goes away. So how do you get that competitive advantage? Well, you've got to be a little bit more creative to do the things that other people aren't actually doing with AI.
What are you doing with ChatGPT?
I think the better question is, what are we not doing with ChatGPT? We had a discussion with our team 2 months ago where we said, if you're not leveraging AI in your role, and this applies with every role in the existing organization, we'll have no need for you within 2 months. So that was 2 months ago that we had this discussion. And now it's starting to come real, and every member of the team is using AI to some level.
It's crazy because like I've been podcasting for so long, dude. Like I've said so many freaking words, right? Like I've done like I think with my guesting appearances, I'm getting really close to like 1,500, counting all my shows and everything I've done of podcasts. So I'm in. Like you can go and you can ask Chat GPT. Like I was playing with it one day. So I speak too. I go out and speak. Like I was on the road, and I was like, I was trying to word something, and I was just like, I wonder if it'll do this. And I said, say this in the style of Shane Sams from Flip Lifestyle. And by God, the first thing it said was, "Hey y'all." I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? It was such my syntax because the data set's been trained with Chat GPT. So what we do now is, and then if I don't, people don't understand exactly how Chat GPT works either. Like Chat GPT is this learning algorithm that understands language, but what's happening is there's a huge team of real humans that look at the outputs and flag it yes or no if it sounds correct to make it more human. So there's a huge human element to what's happening with actual Chat GPT learning. So when I found that out, I was like, well, crap, our team could do that. So now when we write our emails and or we do it or whatever we do for our show notes and stuff, so I will meet with my content team for like 30 minutes. I'll throw 3 bullet points out on everything we got to create that week. My content team, who knows me, right, will kind of create a first quick draft of all the emails. Then we put the whole emails into Chat GPT and we say, rewrite this in the style of Shane Sams from Flip Lifestyle. And then it rewrites an email for us. And then we'll hit a button that says regenerate. You can actually regenerate it and get a second copy that's written differently, but it's the same style. And then our team takes those two, and that's how they make the final product. So instead of me sitting down and writing an email or them trying to sound like me, they literally have an email written by me. It takes us like 20 minutes, man. So if you can get your data set in the thing, man, it's unbelievable. It's awesome. And I agree with you, bro. Like you can't replace Charles on this podcast.
Right.
You can't replace the human Shane on mine. And no AI or robot will ever replace being on a Zoom call with real humans. I don't care what else they replace. They can drive our trucks, they can replace lawyers and their contracts and their words, but they're not going to be able to replace one thing: relationships.
Yeah.
So focus on relationships and your business will make it through the AI revolution, y'all. I promise.
Let me wrap up with another question here. This is the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. What would you say is your best piece of advice for the entrepreneurs listening here today that want to know, how do I take my business beyond seven figures?
I'll tell you the thing that changed it for us for sure to get into that, 7-figure range. Like we have 8-figure ranges that we're going into now. And like the big thing for us was just this switch from being not just consistent, but being prolific. But if you want to do it, you've got to commit to doing it kind of on the daily. The real goal is to find something you love to do 50 hours a week. Like that's what I'm looking for, something that lights me up and that it allows me then to have the enthusiasm and the passion to be prolific. And when I say prolific, I mean like almost every day, right?
Yeah.
That you get up and you're thinking about it, you go to bed and you're thinking about it, your family is embracing it, and you can really be like, I'm going to do this every day. And then on top of that is detaching yourself from outcomes when you become prolific. Like I focus on the things I have to do every day. Like if I'm going to grow my audience, I must go be a guest on another podcast. If I'm going to serve my audience, I must go out there and email them a podcast every day. And I'm committed to doing that no matter what happens on the outcome. I want to be a glacier, unstoppable, moving forward one snowflake at a time, baby. A glacier is prolific, right? That's really the mindset shift, is just be like, you know what? It's not that I dabble in this, like I do this and I do it every day and I'm not going to stop doing it. And that's why eventually everybody else around me will quit and I'll be the one that's a 7 and 8 figures. So that's it, man. Just that commitment to find something you're enthusiastic about and get up and do it every day.
Fantastic. So Shane,
Cool, man.
people want to learn more about you, connect with you, learn about your business. Where do we send them?
Yeah, man. I was taking some notes here during our thing too. But first of all, look up the Flipped Lifestyle Podcast. We've been going since 2014. We've helped thousands of people learn more about, starting an online business, scaling an online business, selling courses, communities, and all the stuff that we did today. And for everybody that listens to your podcast, they can go to flippedlifestyle.com/beyond. And I wrote down a couple courses that we've got. I'm going to pull them out of our training. I've got one on our sales funnel. It'll be a deeper dive into what I talked about earlier, so you can see how we actually put it together. I've got a content training too that talks about how I think about that consistent, prolific framework as we create our content. And I've also got like an email marketing training I can throw in there too, so you can see like what it all leads to. That's like 3 hours of courses. So yeah, just go to flippedlifestyle.com/beyond. If your audience wants to, we can deep dive on all the things that we talked about today. I'll have my team throw it all on a page for them and get it out there, and they can have that for free. Sound good?
Beautiful. Dude, thank you very
Cool,
much.
man.
Again, that's flippedlifestyle.com/beyond.
Yep,
Cool.
that's it, man.
So that wraps up this episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. As a reminder, for more tips, strategies, and information to take your companies beyond seven figures, also check us out at predictableprofits.com. Again, that's predictableprofits.com. This is Charles Goddett with my new friend, Shane Sams, and I will see you in another episode.